readers, it's Lori, Books, Ink, and Paper. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're well, and I hope that you had a great reading week last week. I was busy with work, so not so much reading last week and not so much posted video content, just the one video last week. So that happens now and again, but hopefully things will get back on track. So today's video is all about my favorite podcasts related to all things bookish. I filmed this a while ago and kept meaning to post it and didn't, and now I'm doing it again because I cut my hair since then, and I don't know, it was a while ago. So let's get started. So one of my favorite bookish podcasts is called By the Book. And it is, you can see it with the logo here. This podcast is hosted by Jolenta Greenberg and Kristen Meisner. And they created this podcast a while ago and they entered it into an award opportunity. And whoever won first prize was then given, I think, a grant to develop the podcast. And they won. So what's interesting about this podcast to me is that they only talk about self-help books, and the best part maybe is that they take a look at whatever it is that self-help book professes that you should or could do, and really immerses themselves in that topic for at least a month, and then they come back and tell you what they thought about it. So I have learned a lot about self-help books. Some of the books I've read recently are because I listened to the By the Book podcast. Some of them that they reviewed I've already read, but one, for example, I listened to The Little Book of Hygge because they recommended it and liked it. I have watched The Secret, the movie, but I haven't read the book. They did not like that book. Spoiler alert. And I also read a book by Jen Sincero because they liked the book You Are a Badass. So again, it's really a unique podcast because they take a really down-to-earth and practical approach to reviewing the book by applying it to themselves and seeing how it feels and whether or not it's something that they could get behind. By the Book is a great podcast, and I really recommend it. Okay, one of the next podcasts that I love, I started it, is Harry Potter and the Sacred Texts, which is hosted by Vanessa Zoltan and Casper ter Kuile. This is an interesting take on reading Harry Potter, and I love it. So it goes chapter by chapter from book one to where they are now. They're both students of spiritual sacred text reading. There's a lot of information about reading the Bible as a sacred text. There are people who read other pieces of literature and other religious works as sacred text. But what they do is they break down Harry Potter week by week, chapter by chapter, focus on a specific word or intention, and really discuss it in great detail. So if you love Harry Potter and you want to reread it as a sacred text, I highly recommend this podcast that was actually voted in 2016 as one of the best podcasts of that year. So they've been doing this for a while, but you can always go back to book one, chapter one, The Boy Who Lived, and follow along with Vanessa and Casper. They also are doing a pilgrimage to Sussex because they're in book 4 now, I think. And so you can travel with them in October if that's something that you really want to do as well. But for now, just take a listen and see what you think and see if this is something that would work for you. One of my longtime favorites is What Should I Read Next?, hosted by Anne Bogle, who is also the modern Mrs. Darcy. Anne is an amazing podcaster, and she likes to match people with their next best read. So the premise of her podcast is that she interviews people who love to read. She gets an idea of what they've loved very much and what they have not loved very much. They discuss those books, and then she recommends a couple of books for them to read going forward. I have gotten a lot of great content and great books to read from Anne's podcast. By content, I mean she also has a blog that goes along with this podcast where she she has downloads for you to create your own book journal. She has lots of neat reading lists and prompts for all the seasons of the year, and reads voraciously. I've also read one of her books. I really liked it. And the book is called, let me think about this a second. Future Lori here. Anne Vogel's book is called I'd Rather Be Reading, The Delights and Dilemmas of a Reading Life. I totally don't know where that footage ended up. I lost the ending of that particular wrap up for that podcast. And so just know that Anne's podcast is amazing. She interviews everyday folks, and she has some great books to read as well. Check out her channel at What Should I Read Next, and then check out her website at modernmrsdarcy.com. I don't know what happened to that footage. Another favorite is The Librarian is In, hosted by Gwen Glazer and Frank Calarius. They are both librarians at the New York Public Library. They're at separate branches. However, I think Gwen's job is to curate collections and books and to look at what is a good choice for the catalogs. And Frank is the branch manager, I think, at one of the main branches. Nevertheless, they are hysterically funny. They talk about a variety of books. I get a lot of really kind of obscure recommendations from them, but oftentimes I get a recommendation from them that ends up being something that all of my friends are reading, as in the case of The Convenience Store Woman and one other book I looked at recently to put on my list that they had both really thought was fantastic. They have a lot of other options too for you to listen to, some specialized podcasts about educational programs at the library, kids who have done amazing programs and advanced kinds of projects within their school systems that are created to be enhanced by the library. It's just a lot of great content and information, and they're sometimes pretty irreverent. Frank can sometimes be self-admittedly a little caustic, but I just really enjoy listening to both of them a lot. Kendra Winchester and Autumn Privet host a podcast I love called Reading Women, and they really take a look at books that are written by women, and especially diverse reads as well. They do sometimes focus on reading by women of a particular ethnicity, and they sometimes talk about reading classics, and there's just a lot there. Kendra also has a very wonderful and robust booktube channel called Kendra Winchester, and she's got a background, a degree in English, I think classic literature, possibly. Don't quote me on that. Autumn also has a degree, and they really just have a wealth of knowledge about English literature and writing and what it takes to really create a great experience around the reading, I find. So it's always interesting to me to hear what they're reading too. And again, not your everyday recommendations, sometimes also pushes or challenges me to read outside of my current sort of focus. They do have challenges frequently, and I appreciate those. So check them out, Reading Women podcast. So if you're not familiar with how to listen to podcasts, you can, if you have an iPhone, there's a podcast app. In fact, I'll show you what it looks like just so that you can see. Maybe I can show you what it looks like. So I have a little file, but it's the little purple icon right there. So I have my things all kind of situated in one place, but that's what it looks like on iTunes. And you just click on that, download the app, and then you just search for podcasts that you think would be interesting. If you search for books or reading, you will find a lot of the podcasts that I've mentioned, as well as many, many others. If you have an Android, I'm sure that there's an app for that, but I have no idea what to tell you about it. You can also go to Stitcher.com, or you can go to iTunes and download iTunes on your computer, and then you can listen to podcasts. Even if you don't have an iPhone, you can just create an Apple ID and then listen to those podcasts on your computer at any time that you want to. You can also listen to podcasts on your tablet devices, your iPad, and other devices as well. And you can sometimes listen, most of the time, listen to the website for any of these podcasts. They will keep the episodes on their website, and you can just go to the website and listen to wherever it is that you are. I really encourage you to take a look at these Bookish podcasts and let me know what podcasts you listen to. I'm always looking for a new podcast. I do love listening to audiobooks, but there are times when I'm on a short trip or I'm just in need of a break, and so I will pop one of these on and listen to it in the car or while I'm walking. Doesn't usually take me long to get caught up if I'm behind on my episodes. And sometimes I listen to the same episodes over and over again because I can't quite remember the name of a book, but I know who they were talking to when they recommended it. As always, thanks for joining me. I appreciate your support. I love the comments and the feedback I'm getting, and I hope you have a very happy reading day. Bye.